such meetings that we are holding today, if things go the way they are going now, would become increasingly difficult before they become impossible. Now let me get down to the business. Today I will look at only the state of Andhra Pradesh and the poll data that is available officially about the assembly poll. Next slide. Whatever data, whatever figures that I use today are all from the Election Commission of India, their press conferences, their portal, or the APCU's press conferences as reported in the media. I did not contribute any piece of data to this. Now these are just a fact sheet. You have 4,13,33,702 registered electors. That is the total electorate. And 80.66 was the polling, which would come to 3,33,39,764. In our state, the total booths were 46,389, and the average electors per booth average is 892. There are about 14 constituencies which had about 1,000 thereabouts, 1,007 in some and 1,030 in some other. At 5, as of 5 a.m., the CEO of Andhra Pradesh had announced that the polling was 68.04. As of 8 p.m., the polling was a slight increase to 68.12. It's just about 0.08%. And that comes to overall state, comes to 33,064 votes between 5 p.m. and 8 p.m. Then at 8 p.m., 4 days later, 4 days after the polling day, the polling percentage was 80.66, that is the final. But after the final figure was announced, before that, on 13th, the polling day, late night, APCU had announced that polling was still continuing in 3,500 booths, and it ended. The last person to exercise franchise did that at 2 a.m. That is 14th early hours. He announced that in the morning of 14th. I'll just recap. Final figure was announced on the 17th. That was 80.66%. That was an increase of 4.16% after 11:45 until 2 a.m. That amounts to 17,19,248. That's the gross voting between 11:45 and 2 a.m. But please keep in mind that this polling happened only in about 3,500 booths. Less in some booths, it could be more in some booths. But if it is less in some booths, it necessarily have to be more in other booths. Suppose it was 490 in a booth, then in some other booth it has to be 491. So that's how they average. I don't want to go into every data point, but I want to narrow it down to just these 3,500 votes. And let me be a fly on the wall in one of the polling stations. Let me tell you what I would have seen there. It's 3,500 votes, 491 average per booth. 11:45 to 2 a.m. It's 135 minutes. What does 135 minutes, 491 votes per minute? We had 3.6 votes. So let's say 3 votes. Let's say 3 votes. Generally, it's difficult to 0.5 or more, it's 4. But anyway, let's be a bit conservative. Let's put it at 3.6. Roughly 3 voters a minute. That means 20 seconds per voter. And please remember, Andhra Pradesh had simultaneous polls for Assembly and Lok Sabha. And because there are 2 machines and 2 compartments, each machine has a dead time of 7 seconds. Because once you press it, then the symbol flashes 7 seconds, and then go to the second one. 7 seconds take out. If you take out 14 seconds of this 20, then you're left with 6 seconds. Then what does a voter has to do in the 6 seconds, 20 seconds, let's say? You enter, because I'm a fly on the wall. Somebody entered, and he or she met the party agents, polling agents, showed the slip, then went to polling officer number 1. Polling officer also checks, then goes to number 2. Number 2 takes your signature or thumb impression and puts the indelible ink. Then another officer activates the machine. You go into the compartment, press it, then go to the next compartment, press it again, and then come out. All this was done in Andhra Pradesh in 20 seconds. And that's our specialty. Okay. What happened in that case? I'm still on the wall. See, till 5 p.m., 68.04% was the polling, which means that if you take the average, 74 voters came and voted. However, between 11:45 and 2 a.m., in 2 hours 15 minutes, the 135 minutes, said, we had 400 money. We have a room only for 37 votes. Because you had to, your maximum was 720. Even if the booth had 100% voting, it still had an excess of 286. That makes the polling percentage, at least in one booth, well, it could be in 3,500 booths, 132% polling in those booths. Next. Now I want to be the devil's advocate here. In other words, I want to be the advocate for ECI. 3,500 booths, somebody might say that, they could have multiple polling booths inside a building. Well, if that is so, can you just go to the previous slide once? The previous. You see, between 5 and 8, when in 3 hours only 7 votes were polled, just go back to that. If there are multiple, how could one explain just 7 votes polled in 3 hours? Even in one polling station, it's difficult to explain. If it had multiple, then it will be bizarre. Next. Then another point, you see, it's announced at 5. It could have been, the figure could have been from 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock. Isn't it? That's also one of the arguments. Well, if that is the case, 5 p.m. percentage could be from 3 p.m. because it takes time for the election commission or the CEO to gather the information, to get information from all the centers. But no way does the election commission or the CEO say, I'm announcing my information. And it is very clearly stated in all the releases that as of 5, as of 11. Because, Qureshi, you would know, 7 to 9 is announced at 10 o'clock. 9 to 11 is announced at 12 o'clock. 11 to 1 is announced at 2 o'clock. 1 to 3 was announced at 5 o'clock. 4 o'clock. 3 to 5 was announced at 6 o'clock. So as of 5 is as of 5, not announced at 5 o'clock. 5 o'clock thing was announced at 6 o'clock. Every slot was announced at after 1 hour. Now, even if, for argument's sake, like the Davis argument, even if you want to take it that, it's as not as of, but at that point, whatever information that they had. Let's take it that way. In that case, next slide, please. Okay, from that means if the data 68.04 was from 3 p.m., not 5 p.m. 3 p.m. it was 3 p.m. data announced at 5 p.m. Let's say, take it that way. Which means that 68.04 had been polled by 3 p.m. And that means that booth, 606 votes were already cast by 3 p.m. That would be 75 voters per 1 hour. At that pace, the next 2 hours, each booth could have polled 756 votes. And that would make the polling percentage, at least in these booths, 84%. Way more than the state average of 80.66. That means polling could have been, even if you take 756 and 84%, polling could have been over with that kind of a pace by 5 p.m. Let's say that was a little even slower, not the same pace, but slower. Then, if not 5, 6, if not 6, 7, if not 7, 8. Why till 2 a.m.? Why did it go? Next. Let me take another scenario. If 68.04 were completed by 3, average pace would have been 8.6 per hour. If that is the case, 80.66 would have been reached by 4:30 itself. Maybe 5:30, maybe 6:30, maybe 7:30, maybe 8:30. Why?
क्या कर लो भाई ऊपर लगाओ ना उसको.
Next. Let's take another scenario. What if the 68.04% was from 2 p.m., not even 3? That means the polling average pace was 9.72 per hour. In that case, 80.66 would have been reached by 3:20. Okay, not 3:20, 4:20. Well, not 4:20, 4:30, or 5:30, or 6:30, or 7:30, or 8:30, or even 9:30, 10:30. Why did 2 a.m.? Next please. Now, Prashantji, suppose there was a conveyor belt. Voters are standing and it's just going. But Election Commission's rule book says that at no point of time you should have 3 or maximum 4 in the polling booth. No way. Next. I want to know, and you should also want to know, and tell me why we should know. Which are these 3,500 votes? Which are these? Where are they? Which constituency? Anybody who has already entered the queue will have to be given tokens. The presiding officer has to note it down in the diary. Videos of waiting voters. Discernible faces. They should have been. Where are those records? One more thing. Last person, as the APCO claims, to have voted at 2 a.m. when he would have entered the queue. Nobody could enter the queue after 6 o'clock. So 5:59 maximum, isn't it? So somebody who entered the queue in a polling station at 5:59 or 6 p.m. The last person to go there at 6 p.m. had exercised the franchise at 2 a.m. That is, he was or she was in the queue for 8 hours. Next, please. Now what happened? Let's look at the strike rate. TDP's strike rate was 94%. Janasena Party's strike rate was 100%. BJP's strike rate was 80%. YSRCP's strike rate was 6.2%. Next question. TDP with Janasena with 6.87% won 21 seats out of the 26 because strike rate was 100. BJP with 2.83 won 8 seats. YSRCP with 39.37% won 11 seats. Next please. The total discrepancy between preliminary voting figure works out to be about 30,000 votes per constituency. If you spread across all the 75 votes, 175 votes. But, you know, no spread can be even. And if the height is we want, I want, or the first one, credible answers to the concerns that we raised. Next please. So far, what I have presented to you is agnostic of who is a winner and who is a loser. I'm not bothered. I am also not claiming that had that not taken place, we would have had in Andhra Pradesh another government, another chief minister, or another MLA in my constituency, or different MLA. I'm not claiming that also. It may be, it may not. Instead of winning by 10,000 votes, somebody could have won by just 2,000 votes. I'm not questioning the outcome, final outcome. But even if there is one vote difference between what was actually polled and what was counted, what was reported, it has to be a concern for all of us. The whole process looks suspicious. I'm also not trying to hazard any guesses on how this could have happened. Is it man or is it machine? I'm not going to do that. I just want answers to this. I want to know how this wonderful feat was achieved in Andhra Pradesh. Simple. Because you see, another thing, we recently had the World AA Summit. You remember? In Delhi. AA Summit showcased all the AA achievements. Now, I can suggest here, we should have World Democracy Summit. And in that Democracy Summit, we can have a democracy tourism circuit. Take people to these 3,500 booths where people have waited from 11:45 in the night to 2 o'clock in the morning and identify, because you would have had videography, identify the last person who voted at 2 a.m., who had entered the booth premises at 6 p.m. Felicitate. Because we do felicitate people. Till recently we used to felicitate and talk about the first person who voted in 1951-52. And we also very proudly talked about that one polling booth in Gir Forest in Gujarat, which was put up there for just one voter who was a priest in a small temple representative family, and just to get him vote. There is one booth established only for his sake. Now, this is also another reason to celebrate for us. Thank you very much.
की जो बाउंड्री होती है उसके हिसाब से बता दी जाती है। तो अब आप देख रहे हैं कि अलग अलग साइज के बीच में जो येलो दिख रहा है मुजफ्फरपुर शहर है, छोटा सा मुजफ्फरपुर शहर है, नेचुरली छोटा है, लेकिन बाउंड्रीज, दिस इज व्हाट नॉर्मल बाउंड्रीज लुक लाइक।